Guarding the Molten Core, you'll first meet Molten Giants and Destroyers. The Giants have a small knockup and hit hard, while the Destroyers have a stun. Tanks should use free action potions on Destroyers to avoid this, but otherwise they aren't very scary. Firelords also do some generic fire damage, but have no real mechanics and do not warrant fire resistance gear. As you clear towards the first boss, there will also be Lava Annihilators and Lava Surgers. Annihilators periodically wipe threat off the tank and require multiple off-tanks to taunt in a rotation to ensure it doesn't hit other DPS. Surgers charge into the raid group, dealing large AoE damage. The raid group should all be stacked together, while one person can stand outside the group to bait the charge, ensuring it doesn't go to a squishier target. Ancient Core Hounds patrol the Hollowed Core, and while they have lots of abilities, the one that matters the most is Ancient Despair, causing an AoE disorient that cannot be dispelled. A tank should be waiting in the raid group to help pick up the Hound once this effect goes off. In these narrow tunnels reside Flame Imps. Individually, they aren't scary, but they come in massive groups which have potential to deal big AoE fire damage. They should be AoE'd down as fast as possible by the raid. Entering Magmadar's Cavern, there are a large group of Core Hounds. These don't have any special abilities like the Ancient Core Hounds, but they must be killed together. They will lay at 1 health for a while, and if another dog is still alive in the pack, they will begin to resurrect. Cleave them all down and you'll be able to progress to Lucifron, the first boss. Lucifron and his 2 friends should be tanked away from each other, focusing on the adds first. They can mind control members of your raid while also sending out curses. Dispelling these effects should be the highest priority while the DPS nuke the mobs. Avoid using any AoE or cleave abilities, as members will randomly get mind controlled during the fight and could easily die. Clearing to the end of the cavern, you'll find Magmadar. He puts fire on the ground that you can easily walk out of, but otherwise it's a very straightforward boss. He has a periodic AoE fear, and at low health he'll begin to enrage. This enrage can be removed with a tranquilizing shot from a hunter, which conveniently drops from Lucifron. Moving back through the hallway, and being mindful that imps can quickly respawn, you'll see more of the same trash up to our third boss, Gehennas. He is very similar to Lucifron in that he has 2 adds, and has a curse that must be quickly dispelled. Dissimilarly, however, Gehennas should be focused down first, while the adds are picked up by 2 off-tanks and moved away from the boss. There will be periodic AoE fire that the boss should be kited out of. Also, the adds can stun, so the off-tanks should use a free action potion to avoid this. Next to Gehennas is Gar, and his 8 elemental adds. While Gar doesn't have many mechanics, the raw DPS of 9 mobs can make this a scary pull. A mage will run in with a lip into an ice block to allow the off-tanks to pick up their respective mobs safely, and warlocks will also banish several of the adds. And to the mage, don't put your ice block on a global cooldown as you run in.
You body pull. Ice block. Okay, pick up your mobs quickly now, please.
Every member of the raid should avoid generating any global threat during the start of this pull. That includes using potions, shields, heals, battle shouts, blood rage, mana gems, basically anything. Wait until the tanks have all picked up their targets before casting spells. Like warrior players, Gar's adds have separation anxiety, which is a buff that causes them to hit the off-tanks harder when they're moved away from Gar. Off-tanks should be fully equipped in mitigation gear and have a shield out while the raid bursts down Gar. The adds will then be pulled away one at a time, and they'll explode on death. The tank should be facing towards a wall, while the melee get out of range to avoid the explosions sending them across the room. Unfortunately, this is a raid-wide IQ test. The next section of the raid has heavy amounts of fire damage. This is a good time to boon your world buffs and grab the fire resistance buff from Blackrock Spire. If your raid is coordinated and geared enough to clear the Molten Core in less than 60 minutes, you can grab this buff before you enter the raid. This next section adds lava elementals and firewalkers. You should aim to have around 80 fire resistance from gear, not including the Blackrock Spire buff or other fire resistance potions, totems, or effects. This is only needed for the trash, and you can wear your regular gear on all bosses. Lava elementals have a stun, making it common for raids to banish one if there are more than 2 in a single pack. Meanwhile, the fire elementals will do generic AoE fire damage and leave a pool of fire on the ground upon death. It's a good idea to use greater fire protection potions in this segment, as a lot of fire burst damage can come out of nowhere during these trash pulls. Patrolling around this section is Baron Geddon, and throughout the fight he will put Living Bomb on a random raid member. While this isn't lethal to the target, it can easily destroy a raid if the player doesn't move, or does something like ice blocking or petrieing, which will instantly set off the bomb in the raid. There are assigned spots for ranged and melee DPS to run to so they can safely explode if they receive the bomb. Additionally, Baron will occasionally use Inferno, surrounding himself with pulses of fire. The melee should walk away following the side of the lava back to the range stack and wait out this effect. The fire becomes increasingly stronger with each wave, and the last wave can one-shot even a geared tank if they re-enter too soon. Immediately after is Shazra, who does not have any adds like his previous counterparts. Shazra does large AoE arcane damage and puts out a dangerous damage amplification curse that should be decursed immediately. If the fight goes long enough, Shazra will teleport to the range stack. However, you should be able to avoid this entirely by just killing him fast enough. Warriors will likely use Recklessness on this boss to make sure they meet the DPS check. Traversing the canyon leads the raid to Sulfuron Harbinger, who has 4 adds. He must have stolen 2 from Shazra. While this boss gets pulled to the side, these adds can be moved together and cleaved down. It is essential that their healing spells are interrupted. Harbinger also has an AoE stun, which melee DPS can use a free action potion to avoid. Golemag and his 2 dogs are a unique fight in which you don't need to kill the adds at all. If these dogs are moved and tanked away from Golemag, then Golemag is left with no real mechanics other than an AoE earthquake effect at 10% health, but frequently you won't even see this go off because of how quickly he is killed. Now walking up to our penultimate boss is Major Domo Executus, with his 8 adds. 4 of which are healers and 4 are Flamewalker elites. The healers should all be polymorphed at the start of the fight, while the elites are killed. Once the 4th elite dies, all polymorphs will break and the healers will run free, which should quickly be picked up by tanks. These can be grouped together and cleaved down. During this fight, Major Domo will be distracted by an off-tank. He will also periodically summon a player into the middle of the lava pit, which you can just move out of. Also, Major Domo will put up a shield that reflects damage and spell effects. However, that's only for him and not his adds. Since we aren't attacking Major Domo, you can ignore this. After the last add is killed, Major Domo Executus will turn friendly and submit, ending the fight, allowing us to use him to summon Ragnaros.
Too soon. You have awakened me too soon, Executus.
Finally, you can face the Fire Lord Ragnaros in his lair. First is his Wrath of Ragnaros. When available, he'll attack a melee DPS in range, sending them flying and wiping their threat. Melee DPS will walk out of range when this ability is available, and wait until it's used on a tank and threat is re-established before entering melee range again. Ragnaros also has a ranged fireball that he will throw at a random mana user. It's possible you'll get blasted into lava during this fight, in which case you can just walk out of it back into your assigned position. However, if you get stuck, you should try to survive as long as possible or use a Petri until you can be summoned back to safety after the fight ends. If not killed within 3 minutes, Ragnaros will submerge under the lava and summon a wave of adds to fight. However, assuming you've come prepared with proper gear and world buffs, this should not be a DPS race that you are concerned with. Congratulations on the loot and becoming a hardcore survivor of the Fire Lord.
Die, insect!